One's ready. Go! So you guys are going into Special Warfare Assessment Selection. It is an attributes-based selection model. What does that mean?
Guys, are we running right now to get fitter? Or are we practicing running? Practicing.
I can't freaking...
So there's a holistic picture that we're looking for. The instructors are giving you input, and we're expecting an output. And everything is for a reason. If you guys haven't heard my spiel yet, everything that we do, every single exercise, has a connection to the job that you're trying to do. We don't want people at INDOC, Special Warfare Assessment Selection, whatever they're gonna call the new course when it inevitably changes somewhere down the road. I don't care what they call it. What I need is you to show me the raw materials for the things that I wanna build you into. Just like everything else, it's a crawl, walk, run.
I'm running Keysler just like this. All the way to ATC, you never quit. All the way to ATC, you never quit.
Yeah, as Wheezy F Baby said, let the beat run. I'm going back in. So welcome back, everybody. We had a little technical difficulty. So if you just saw me go like live for whatever reason on the War Room, just because the studios were there and you saw some other stuff happen, don't worry about it. We figured it out. I want to say a huge shout out to Matthew Hardy over at hardymedia.net. Go check him out for everything that you possibly need for this amazing studio, the technical support that I just got. I would not have been able to give you this episode if it wasn't for Matthew Hardy literally standing behind the camera right now, trying to figure out why it is we couldn't hear. Why was I going live on multiple different channels? If you need support like that, if you need an in-person podcast studio, Las Vegas, Nevada, or if you need anything, from data management to production to anything that you need, social media management, man, go over to Matthew Hardy over at hardymedia.net. So thanks for the studio. All right, everybody, we did it. We're here. We're recording. I'm not getting any text messages from Peaches. People aren't telling me I'm live on other channels. So we're here. We wanted to hit a frequently asked questions. We wanted to get some great quality and some good short form content out to you because you guys need it. We want the updates. We want to give you exactly what you need to get in here, right? And I was kind of riffing on it earlier, before we figured out that nobody could hear me, which, I got to be honest, we get a lot of input, and some of the input is they could hear me a lot less. And I get that. I understand that. I accept that. I know who I am as a person, so I get it. Sorry that Peaches and Trent aren't here for you today, but we just love giving you content. We love getting you the information that you need. So we're going to start. Let's start with all these things. I'm going to try to get all these questions. We had some good frequently asked questions here. We had some really, really interesting questions, especially there was one from a parent that I thought was really, really good. We love talking to you parents, so I'm going to hit that one here at the end. But we want to start. Let's start with brass tacks, right? So the pipeline updates. We are going to start with my question from Yosef. Are they getting rid of the water portion for the new selection, or will it remain? So here's the updates as much as we can give you. I want to give a shout out first and foremost to the Air Force Special Warfare Training Wing, public affairs folks, and the people that are helping getting ahead of this messaging. We give them a lot of crap. We totally do. Okay. Some of it's justified. Some of it's me being a meanie head and saying things that are inflammatory because that's what sells on the internet. Go over to onesready.com and get yourself a piece of merch. No big deal. It doesn't cost you that much. But I do want to give them a shout out. We have been beating this drum that, we want to help message and we want to help get these things out here. And sometimes it's personality driven and sometimes it's just a bad timing sort of scenario. But what I do want to do is I want to give kudos, and I want to say this, not just to say that, we have a good working relationship, but what I want to say is that they are desperately trying to get you this information. I know that on the internet, you want things right away. You ask a question, somebody should answer that question in 24 hours, and you should have everything that you need to go on with life. The military doesn't, obviously it doesn't work like that, right? Like there's messaging, there's things that have to get done. You don't want to let the horse out of the barn, so to speak, before you have a complete plan in order and a way to message that plan, because a lot of times that can cause a lot of undue drama and whatever else. What I want to say is they are trying their level best to get you this information. I know that the pipeline change is coming up. Is there going to be water? Is there not going to be water? Should I keep swimming? Is it going to be a ruck-based selection? Should I be focusing more on land nav? Should I be focusing more on carrying weight? Whatever. I get it. It's tough. It's hard. You're changing your entire life in order to pursue something that you've got a 9% chance of actually succeeding. I got it. And then the likelihood that you're going to be a good special operator after that, just because you graduated the pipeline doesn't mean that you're going to have a great career as a combat controller or a special reconnaissance airman or TAC P or PJ or whatever you want to be, an officer. I don't know why you'd want to be an officer, but whatever. I guess there are people out there that make bad decisions all the time. So there we go. But we want to get you the information, and we understand that like you're changing your entire life for it, right? So I want to say from us and in teaming with the Air Force Special Warfare Training Wing, they're trying to get you the information out here. There's just a lot of stuff that happens, right? So to bring everybody up, they're talking about a change in the pipeline. You can go, I think it's episode 478 and 479. We did a big deep dive into exactly what it's going to look like with the Zulu course and having a change to the way that we go across the pipeline. And we're going to talk about maybe is the Air Force getting their own pipeline schools later in this episode. We had a great question about that. So stick around for that and you'll hear my opinion on that one. There's always going to be change. The NDOT course was never a static course. People tend to look at the old model that we had, right? Because we're talking about these new pipeline changes. We just changed the pipeline to an Air Force attributes-based selection and assessment model, right? So we looked at holistically the airman and the person that we're bringing into the special operations career field. This is 2015, we had the Women in Service review, and that changed a lot about physical requirements for the job. And a lot of the outputs from that were the new selection models. And all 4 services, by the way, have changed the way that they look at assessment selection, change the numbers. Some people say that it's changing standards. Some people say that it isn't. Whatever. I don't care about the drama. The point of this whole rant is that change is the only constant in everything that we do. The NDOC course was not a single etched in stone course that never changed the entire time. NDOC was getting a new course when I was going through it. And I've told this story before, but when you have a new course and you have new things that you want to teach, that stuff has to be validated because this is an instructional overarching command, right? Like the Air Education and Training Command is backed by decades and hundreds of years of instructional, expertise and data and all these other things that go into actually making a course. We don't just throw stuff at a wall and say, oh, this should work. Let's just punch people in the face for 10 weeks and see if they come out on the other side of it. That's not what we did. All that stuff was based on numbers. Everything that we did in the old NDOC model was based on data and science and output and thousands and hundreds of thousands really of touch points of people that tried to get through and either succeeded or didn't. And we had all that good data, right? And we changed it a little bit in 2015 to the 2019 period where we started looking at job requirements. That's where the new PT test came out of. And then of course, if you have new job requirements and you have a new way to measure those job requirements being a PT test, well, then you're looking and assessing and selecting for different things at the beginning of the pipeline, right? So that would drive a pipeline change. The other thing that I want to get into your head here as we're talking about these pipeline changes, like why are we doing it? This entire thing should be messaged as pipeline optimization. The pipeline takes a long time to get through. It takes 2 years, anywhere from 18 months to 2 years is what we'll tell you is a good wild ass guess for how long it is that you can spend in the pipeline. A lot of that time that's built into there is not optimized time. That's students not in training or SNIT time, meaning you're just in between schools, you're waiting on something. This doesn't count if you got injured and you had to roll to a new team or yada, 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 any of those other things. We're talking about just time that you're not spending actually getting closer to your goal of graduation. It's all cool to wake up and work out 2 times a day and maybe go move some stuff out of a closet or sweep a floor for 2 straight weeks because you're in between class, but that's not getting you closer to your overall goal of, graduating and becoming a special operator in the Air Force. It's obviously, if you're not getting things done in the pipeline, then you're not getting closer to your goal, right? So what the entire organization, when I say organization, I don't speak for the DoD, but I'm telling you from AFSOC, AFSPEC War, 2nd Air Force, all these other stakeholders, people that have, no kidding, a say in what's going on. And these are all competing interests, and we can go into that as deeply as you like, but I'm trying to give everybody a good look at what the pipeline is, if it's changing, and how it's going to change. You got to have the backstory to it. You got to understand the why. We're looking to optimize the pipeline. We want to get the most training that we possibly can. If it was up to me, you'd graduate your assessment selection on a Friday, you'd hit dive school on that following Monday. You'd graduate dive school on a Friday, you go to airborne on that following Monday. There's no time. The only time is you're grabbing your happy little bag and you're going to your next school and you're signing in, right? That's a perfect world. we don't have a perfect world. We don't own all the schools. We don't own the free fall school. We have to contract out for paramedic for the PJs. That's another 6 months of training that they have to do down at Lackland. We have to get you to this school, and there's competing interest with the Army, and there's competing interest with the Navy, and there's a whole bunch of people trying to go through these sort of bottlenecks, and it causes delays in the pipeline. What we're trying to do with the entire pipeline reorganization, and we're going to talk about, is there swimming? Do you need to train? All that other stuff, right? Because that affects your life. But really, as you zoom out, for everybody else that's listening, that's part of this process, it's seeing it going on, especially these old dudes that think that you understand the process and think you understand change management. I could use your help, fellas. Hop into the comments and help these young people out when they're like, oh, I don't understand why we're changing it. We're changing it because warfare is changing, and we need to change along with warfare. If we fight the last 10 years war, we're going to be really good at fighting the last 10 years war. I'm not worried about the last 10 years war. I'm worried about the next 50. And that's what we do here. We get you a baseline so that you're good for the next 50, because I can't do it. I'm old, I'm broken, I wasn't a very good operator. It is what it is. Peaches is retired. He's the best of us, but even he had to step away from the game because it's time for these young lions to go out there and lead. We got to get you the stuff that you need to include information like this so that you can go lead as you get into the future. So that brings us to today, right? That's all this historical background. Why are we changing? What do we need to do? What do we gotta, what are the competing interests that we've got to fight with in order to get this huge thing changed? Because it is a huge undertaking, right? You have multiple different commands inside of the Air Force with competing interests, trying to get the best possible product that they can, the best possible special operator to present to the larger DoD force, because that's this game, right? We get focused on the pipeline and getting through your schools and whatever else, but really what we're doing with the pipeline, with Air Force Special Warfare Assessment Selection, this entire thing that we're doing is for a reason, and it's to give special operators to the national mission units so that we can kill people and break their shit. And then if somebody gets hurt and we can't get them, we got teams that go do that, right? That's what we provide to the larger architecture. So never get so far into the weeds that you don't realize the bigger picture here. We are here to provide special operators from an Air Force perspective, with an airman's perspective, to the special operations community to support SOCOM in order to get after national mission sets. We are here to do those things. Hyperbolically speaking, we're the tip of the spear, special operate. I got it. I got all that stuff. But there's a very clear throughput of what we're doing, and you should always be focused on that end goal. Okay. Assessment selection is the start of what we're doing, like for that entire process that I just laid out to get to the next 50 years of warfare. We need to be able to select the right people at the beginning of the process that have the raw materials to build them up. So when we talk about how are we going to change these things, we're constantly looking and imagine all of the things that we can leverage at our disposal today. When I say we're constantly looking at the process to make it better, that's the thought that kind of kicked me off on this, right? We're constantly looking at the process. Compare that to 20 years ago, just what I said, you'd be talking about 6 guys at Lackland Air Force Base in some weird training annex that they call Medina. And they would just be in this building. And the building only had windows like on the outside offices. A lot of the inside offices didn't have the building. It felt a lot like a dungeon. And there'd be like 7 enlisted dudes in that room with one E8 that was their boss. And they'd be like, all right, cool. So we got to try to get more people through this pipeline. We got to get some data, and we got to try to figure out how to make this course better, right? They did that for 40 years, from 1966 to the 2000s, where we were like, okay, cool. The NDOC model, it is what it is. Controllers and PJs were together and then they split and whatever else. But we thought the NDOC model was pretty good. Well, if you just take the context of like those 6 guys in that room, we're trying to look at this now, to figure out, hey, is this the best model? Are we getting who we need to do? Are we going to be able to fight the next year, the next 50 years war with these people that we're getting in? And how does the course validate that we chose the right people? Because that's what we're trying to do, right? Select the right people, have a course that validates selecting the right people in order to go do the thing. That's what we're doing. The context of 6 dudes in a room with an E8 that's just telling them to go do is completely different than the context now, where we have AI integrations, we have RAND, we have all of these people that can look at high level data. We have WHOOP data and omega waves and sleep studies and RAND studies on proper. I could tell you for sure that candidates do the best down at Air Force Special Warfare Assessment Selection if they sleep in a temperature controlled room at 68 degrees. Why do I know that? Why didn't the 6 dudes in that room at Lackland Air Force Base in 1985, probably Ross Kilbride. Shout out Ross Kilbride, who's probably there. Why didn't those 6 dudes know that? Well, they didn't have the tools that we had, but it can also lead to a little bit of stray voltage, right? We can start chasing stuff like sleep beds and all this other stuff. And that's where the divisions of the 2 courses and the pipeline evolution, because that's what we're talking about, the new pipeline, where are we going? That's where you have those tribalisms that start. Like, hey, we did this all on our own with 5 enlisted dudes in a room, and we were able to make a course, and the attrition rate never slipped, and we got the right person. Awesome. Well, now we're in a different context, and we have to look at things differently. So, of course, people are looking at how to optimize the pipeline. That's what we're trying to do. If this was the most gracious that I could possibly be, and I never message on behalf of the Air Force, you guys know how I feel about doing about that. But if I was going to tell you, if I was going to sell you on this new pipeline, I'd say that you're going to get 2 years worth of training and 1 year's worth of time, with the exception of the PJs. You're going to get about 6 months more medical. So you're going to spend a little bit more time in the pipeline than your other funny-hatted brother friends. But we're going to get you the most amount of training with the least amount of downtime that we possibly can. And we're going to get you out onto your team so that you can start getting that advanced training and go deploy. That is the most clean way that I could sell you on this thing. If there is one thing that I want you to take away from why are we changing the pipeline, because I disagree with the pipeline changes on a lot of stuff. I've been super transparent about that. You guys know who I am. You guys hear me all the time talk about my opinion on whether I think it's right, and there's nuance in that or whatever. But there are things that I agree with wholeheartedly. And one of the things that I agree with wholeheartedly is that we need to optimize the pipeline to get the most amount of training in, the most amount of valuable training that we can possibly get in to this pipeline in the shortest amount of time, and get you to the teams to go do the work, because that's where we need you. Now we can talk about, do I need a dive qualified combat controller at the 2-3 STS? Does he need to go to dive school before he goes to the union? All that other stuff is whatever. It put that all to the side for right now. That's all noise. What we need is operators to the teams that can go support, downrange, deploy, and then retain. And we want them to stay on after that first enlistment. That's what we're trying to get after here. That's the people that we're trying to put into it. So Joseph, it's a great question. Are they getting rid of water at the new selection? Will it remain? What are the pipelines going to look like? The Zulu course, I know. I'm excited about the Zulu course. For those of you not tracking that didn't see episode 478, the Zulu course is a common skills course. We were teaching a bunch of things in a bunch of different schoolhouses. TAC-Ps were teaching tactics, and PJs were teaching tactics, and so were combat controllers, and it was different times of the pipeline. And sometimes you're repeating information, or sometimes you got partial information from one school and then fill in information from the other. We wanted to, and this has been an initiative for a long time, is, ever since 2015, when I got to the schoolhouse, we were talking about a common skills course. What if we just got all the beret wearers together and we trained on all these things? Battle drill 4 is still just battle drill 4, y'all. That's just a react to contact. PJs don't do react to contact different than Rangers, than combat controllers, than Marines. They all do it the same. React to contact, near or far ambush, go do the thing. Indirect fire, go do the thing, right? Those are your battle drills, and that's why they're standard across everybody. It's how we operate inside of teams and outside of teams. It would be great if we had a common operating picture, because then that would do is then you take all those little blocks, and we talk about pipeline optimization. You talk about all those little blocks that you're taking out on all these other things. Oh, well, PJs don't need this tactics block. TAC-Ps don't need this tactics block. And, oh, PJs were doing their own shooting. Let's move that down into common skills. What else were we doing that's all the same? Combat controllers, you don't shoot a pistol any differently than combat controllers shoot pistols a little bit differently than a PJ, because PJs typically hit what they're aiming at, and combat controllers don't. Okay. If it's not a radio, combat controller, I love you, brothers. Okay. Employment, y'all are trash. Listen, there's a thing called a PJ delay. Combat controllers. Here's a PJ delay. And my friend Shane, best friend in my whole life, my friend Shane and Mike, my 2 best friends. Matthew Hardy's son, the godfather to my son, Michael. Shane and I used to have the PJ delay, and this is when we were with Peaches at the 321st, and it would look like this. The PJs and the controllers would be on the end of the ramp, and they would look at each other and they'd go, "Hey, man, you want to do a sick 5-way?" And the PJs are like, "Yeah, bro. We got our 3, you got your 3, you guys go, and we'll be right after you." And we're like, "Yeah, man, that's awesome." And then the controllers would go, and then the PJs would go like this. And then go, because you guys are trash and you can't shoot pistols. Now that I've made everybody mad, that's not true. Some of the best shots I've ever met are combat controllers. I just said that to be inflammatory, and it made Matthew laugh. So there you go. Take that. See, he's laughing right now. Feels good. Feels good to be in an in-person studio. So all that to say, this big thing, other than controllers are trash and they can't shoot, we're optimizing the pipeline. It doesn't matter if they're going to put swimming at the beginning, or if they're going to put it into the Zulu course as a ramp up, or if they're going to give you water con at a different point, or if they're going to have different cohorts of people. Like PJs need to be better in the water because they're going to go to dive school right away, right? The situation is what the situation is. PJs are going to dive school in the pipeline. Combat controllers aren't. Special reconnaissance aren't. Stows aren't. But PJs are. So they probably have to be a little bit better in the water. So those people are probably going to get a little extra juice in the same amount of instruction. But how do we get everybody together to optimize the pipeline, and how do we make these efficiencies? So that's what we're looking forward to. Now, to the actual part that you came here for, like, what are you supposed to be training for? All of the things, nothing is getting taken away. And I want to start with that. When people are like, what should I be focusing on in my training? What should I be prioritizing? The answer hasn't changed. How it is that they organize, how it is that they instruct, where it is that they put that into the flow of where you learn these things. Those skills didn't get deleted from anywhere. And that's important for everybody to understand. You're still going to swim. You're still going to have these underwater core competencies, especially when we're talking water confidence, right? So not even subsurface, true dive school sort of exercise. Everybody, ditch and on and all these other like specific dive school things that everybody says are WaterCon. Really the water confidence umbrella. So we're talking TAC-P, we're talking combat controller, going to dive school, not going to dive school. Those skills still exist. You're still going to have to do them. You're still going to be put in high stress situations where you're going to be asked to do super complex tasks. And if you haven't trained on them, then you're going to be deficient. Now, I understand when you ask us, well, how should I be prioritizing my training? If this is going to be a more land-based selection, especially up front, then I have to prioritize my training to be on there. So maybe it's a nuance in how much time you devote to each sort of thing. But to be honest, that's why we haven't come out with a huge episode on, hey, here's how this remarkably changes your life, because it doesn't. You need to be able to crush the IFT. The IFT is running, swimming, calisthenics, and 2 underwaters. That's what the IFT is. You should be able to absolutely drop the hammer on IFTs back to back to back to back to back anytime. It doesn't matter if you trained. I am sore as crap right now. If I was training, leg day yesterday, terrible. I'm finally getting back off my knee injury. I'll put it out here because this is what you got to do. You got to make yourself accountable. By the time that I am, let's call it 46 years of age, well, it's probably a little bit short. So let's say 46 and a half. So I'll give myself a year. I want to go 3, 4, 5. I want to bench 3 plates. I want to squat 4 plates. I want to pull 5 plates. So 3, 4, 5. I think that's a good goal for me to get, right? Sore as crap. If I was training for the pipeline, I wouldn't be pursuing that sort of thing. I'd be doing a shit ton of pull-ups and push-ups and sit-ups and getting those numbers in that happy range where you can repeatedly pass that IFT with no problem. You should not be close to anything, especially the run. And I'm going to put this out here for how you guys are prioritizing your training. Faster runners have a higher graduation rate than slower runners do. Period. End of statement. It's scientifically verified. It's correlated. It's causated. It's everything that you need for this to be the number one thing that you prioritize. Faster runners graduate more often. Period. End of story. Your water confidence does not matter. It does not matter your calisthenics. They do not matter nearly on the same plane as simply being a faster runner. If you can run a 6-minute mile, and if you can hold a 6-minute mile pace for 3 miles, you are going to graduate at an exponentially higher rate than somebody that can run, say, a 7-minute mile or a 7:30 mile, or they're barely passing all of those evaluations. The faster runner you are, the more you're going to graduate, period. That's how you should be prioritizing your training. So when we talk about, it's a great question, right? Everybody wants to know, like, hey, what should I be training? Are they going to keep the water in? Do I need to focus on this? And because we all have a finite amount of time to dedicate to this stuff. And I've said it before, you can use my own words against me on these issues. You have to train specifically and you have to train efficiently for what you're doing. Every single exercise that you should do should have a direct correlation to a graded event that you're trying to pass in the future, right? That's training specifically. Everything that you do is for a reason. If you want to tell me you do, Indian club quarter rotations of your wrist because you feel like it helps you hold the snorkel better. Okay, fine. But you should be able to explain to me every single thing that you're doing. We're not just running, we're practicing, to quote Taylor Starch. So when we go out on a programmed run, we should have an output from that run and it should get me closer. That's training specifically, right? I have an input. There's an output. Does this output get me closer to where I want to be? That's training specifically. And then training efficiently is only doing the things that matter, right? Because we have a finite amount of time. So I think people get wrapped around the axle when they talk about, well, should I be prioritizing this or should I be prioritizing that? It's going to be largely personnel. Like, what are your weaknesses is where I would start. If you're a slow runner, don't even talk to me unless you're running 20, 25 miles a week. Bare minimum. And then don't talk to me until that run time is hovering around that 6:30 mile pace. If you're not dropping a 6:30 mile pace sustained, and I'm talking for at least 2 miles that you can run a 6:30, so 2 miles and what is it, 12, 13 minutes? 13 minutes flat for a 2 mile? That's like entry standards, guys. So I hope there's a whole lot of people out there that are like, wow, I don't run nearly that fast. Well, you have to, or you're not going to graduate. So long rant. Yosef, that was a great question. Thank you for allowing me the space to get and really talk about in nuance about why we're changing the pipeline. What does the pipeline changes look like? I can't give you a timeline for when this stuff's going to get put out. There's still there's literally hundreds of different people working on this in different silos that all have to coordinate, communicate, collaborate, and then put out coherent messaging, come up with policy, get it funded, get it manned. There's going to be real people that have to move things like these changes. I think we've told you before, but no kidding. People are going to have to like grab things out of dorm rooms and move them over to other dorm rooms. Like this thing does actually require work. It's not some magic wand that you can just be like, oh, this is the new pipeline and this is what we do. You need to find those vehicles and you need to have people that are qualified to drive those vehicles. And you need to figure out who owns those vehicles for when the vehicle gets a flat. Like these are all things that we have to think about inside of that course. So I can't tell you when it's going to get approved. I can tell you that it's working all the time. I can tell you that we will be the first people. As soon as there is verified information out there, as soon as there is any change to the pipeline, we will be the first people that will get it to you. Let's talk about some more. I'm going to try to get a through line here. So a lot of times when we do these AMAs, we get a bunch of wild questions, right? And they're not like in any coherent thing. It's just literally I put a question box out there and I say, hey, what do you guys want to talk about? And then it's just unhinged people that were just scrolling through like cat videos or Ukraine war videos, and they just had this wacky thought and they just put it out there. So it's kind of hard to like make a coherent through line, but that's what we're going to try to do here. So we are going to talk, we'll try to keep it in training. And so I'll look for some of this stuff that's like training before we get into the pipeline, because we talked about pipeline changes. So now we'll put it in this bucket. We'll kind of talk about, pre-pipeline dev stuff, questions that you might have here. This is a great one. So this is back to school. He had a couple questions here. Back to school. Love it. Thanks for engaging, buddy. Are swim caps allowed for the 500 meter, 550 yard swim for someone with long hair? Brother, I love that we're talking about this. Can I just tell you, as a guy with good hair, I didn't wear a hat today. I just wanted to flex on you a little bit. I just wanted to let you know, 45 years old. You're telling me I got some gunmetal gray coming in? Look at this gunmetal, that solid part, got a good hairline going on. I can't even, guys, my grandpa Kilroy. Okay. So it's your mom's dad is in charge of your hair for the rest of your life. We bring mentorship and we bring, some education to this podcast, and here it is, but it's your maternal father's genes that drive what a head of hair you have. My mom's dad, the beautiful man that he was, beautiful Irish man, Jack. He was his name was John Vincent Kilroy, but he went by Jack because it was just cool. Like he had a tattoo of the old skunk from Disney, Petunia. They would like smell the flower and the flower would wilt. He had that tattoo. He got it in the Navy. It was like the only one he got. It was hilarious, dude. But that dude got a haircut every single day, every single week of his life until he was like 85. Silver Fox, he went completely gray when he was like, I don't know, 30, like 27 or 30. And just completely like stark white gray. But he got a haircut up until he died. I just wanted to flex on you guys a little bit and just pull it out. Just show you. It ain't tricking if you got it. You know what I mean? So back to school. How you can wear a swim cap, buddy? Is this what we're worried about? Here we go. Back to school. You had another good question. So we're talking pull-ups. Can you pause for a second on the up position for pull-ups? So when we're talking about the IFT, it's a graded exercise. You will mount the bar, you will hang, you will come to a dead hang. At this point, the instructor is looking to see that you have a full extension of your arm. My shoulders operate wacky. Like if you ever notice how I sit, you'll see that my shoulders are offset. It's because I have a severe spinal injury, right? So each person is different. Their arms extend to a different thing. We put you up on the bar and we ask you to hang from the bar because then we can see the fully extended and locked position. That's going to be important because that's the position you have to extend to before you start your next repetition. When we talk about getting your reps to count, this is why we are so important, like why we harp on this so much, is that you may think that you're doing good pull-ups. You're probably not doing good pull-ups. I'm going to put this out there. There's a little app that we've been in development with. It's for a commercial release right now. It's the Pose Fitness app. We are building these specific exercises. And as a matter of fact, there's a full suite of exercises that you can already go in there and you can set up AI on your phone and it will tell you to our standard if you're doing it correctly or not. Go check out the Pose Fitness app. And you can go over to onesready.com. You maybe find a sweet discount code in there and let them know that we sent you over to Pose, and you can start training specifically and efficiently and make sure that you're not wasting any reps because it's a big deal. So as we continue to talk about pull-ups, can you pause for a second on the up position of pull-ups? What I assume that you mean here is that once you mount the bar and hang, and if we're putting this in the context of the IFT, you're going to mount the bar and hang. The instructor is going to tell you that your 2 minutes is about to start. And he will say, go, at which point that is your first repetition. Now, there is no up or down call in the IFT. It is a self-paced event, meaning you do the repetition to what you think is the standard, and then you repeat that repetition until you're smoked, until you can't do it anymore. So in this case, pull-ups, you either come off the bar. Well, that is it. You either hang on the bar until the end of your 2 minutes, or you come off the bar and your feet touch the ground, at which point the test is over. So there is no up command. So if we're doing this as a team, I would tell you as you're down, I would say team ready, you'd say ready, and then I would say up, and you would pull from up there. So in the context of the IFT, there is no up command. So there is no position other than the starting position, which is the dead hang of the pull-up. If you're asking me, can you pause for a second in the up position for pull-ups? What I assume that you mean is that fully extended, like where you would get the command of up, pulling yourself up to the bar, that fully extended locked out position of the shoulder. You can pause there for as long as you like. So the second that your hands hit that bar, you go to the full dead hang position. Your instructor is he's already given you a brief and you're going to get the time. But that test goes from the time that your hands hit the bar until the time that your feet hit the ground, or 2 minutes, whichever comes first. So if your feet leave the bar and they touch the ground, or if your hands leave the bar and your feet touch the ground, you're done. And if 2 minutes happens, you could still be doing pull-ups. Like let's say you're some beast and you can knock out 45 pull-ups and your only limiting factor is time. And somehow you're on pull-up 43 and I tell you that your time is extended, then that's when it ends as well, right? Can you pause? Yeah, you can pause as long as you want. I don't recommend it because one of the primary things driving your pull-ups is your grip strength. It doesn't matter how strong your lats are, how strong your shoulder girdle is, how strong your AC is, how mobile your elbows are. None of that matters if you can't hold on to the bar. Grip strength is a big deal in pull-ups. A lot of times, if people are struggling with pull-ups, some of the things that I'll have them work on for ancillary exercises is grip strength. If your grip strength is good and you're not as fatigued through the smaller connection points of your skeletal structure, your hand, your wrist, your elbow, if those things aren't fatigued, then you can pull through and you can focus on those larger muscle groups more efficiently and making you less tired in small muscle groups, therefore making you hang on the bar for longer. So to answer your question, yeah, you can rest however long you want, Playboy. You can sit down there. You can do 4 pull-ups during this thing. Passing is 8. I recommend doing the minimum. But you could do over the course of 2 minutes, if you wanted to take a full pull-up, down, extend, go to your starting position, you just wanted to hang out there, you could. I don't know why you would want to do that. The most that I would ever say, and this is push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, any calisthenic event, as a matter of fact, usually 3 seconds, about a 3-second break is about as much as you're going to get a benefit from. Waiting for 5 or 6 seconds, that actually has any more than 5 seconds, you're essentially just resting and coming out of the tension that you're in for whatever we'll talk about. If you're talking about taking a rest for pull-ups or push-ups or sit-ups or whatever you're doing, 3 seconds is about right. So you don't want to rest in the push-up, the pull-up, or the sit-up for any more than about 3 seconds, right? Big deep breath in, big deep breath out, and then you go. You set and you do however many reps you're aiming for that next one. So I don't like resting a whole lot off of there. Back to school, we're going to get another one here. Can you go underwater when kicking off the wall for the 500 swim? Yes, and I actually recommend it. So it's just swimming, like competition swimming, especially if you look at the people that are in the Olympics now. Everybody stays underwater as long as they possibly can. You get in that good, tight, streamlined position. You've got a dolphin kick. Some use a flutter kick. It depends on what stroke they're using, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Staying underwater in a streamlined position is going to get you the absolute most efficiency you can, right? So this is a finning technique, but it's also a swimming technique. The more powerful you are off the wall, the longer you stay underwater in a streamlined position, then the less time you're going to spend doing the inefficient part of swimming, which is actually moving through the water, right? The most efficient way to move through the water is an extremely streamlined position with propulsion behind you. And that would look like a streamlined position from a swimmer with a big dolphin kick behind them, right? Like that's how somebody should clip that, just that me doing there. Aaron Love Hate Club, get on that one. That was absolutely unhinged. I don't even know. Like that was the most sus thing. Hey, yo, pause. What? It happens, folks. But that's the most efficient position. When we're actually swimming, freestyle is the most efficient thing that you can do. The front crawl or the freestyle is the most efficient swimming technique that you can use for surface, but it's still highly inefficient. You're basically dragging your body through the water as opposed to maintaining a tight, streamlined position. On that 500-meter swim, you should be maximizing every single push off that wall. Because if you just think about it, the flags are typically 5 meters from the end of the pool. We have a 50-meter pool. Let's say it's a long course, so it's a 50-meter total. 5 meters out and 5 meters out from the end of that wall is going to be the flags. Typically, we call in swimming, it's inside the flags, outside the flags. Like if you're inside of the flags, that's where you're talking about your actual like swimming. When we talk about swimming inside the flags, you should always be, if you push off a wall, your goal really, even on the 500-meter swim, should be such a tight streamline and such a good push off that wall is that your entire body, meaning your feet, should clear that 5-meter flag line. So as your feet come up, like if you're laying down sideways, like if this is the pool and this is the flag, your feet should really be breaking the surface of the water at those flags, meaning you as a 6-foot human, hopefully, because you're 6 foot tall and 200 pounds, anybody smaller than that is a victim. I won't be told otherwise. If you are 6 feet tall, then that puts really your head breaking up like 6 feet in front of those flags. If you think about it in that way, so we've got 5 meters on this end, 5 meters on this end of a 50-meter pool. Well, now we're only swimming for 40 meters. So what happens if we got like 3 meters on this end and 3 meters on this end? That gets us up to like 15 meters worth of time where we're streamlined. It doesn't cost us any energy. It's one big push off the wall and a good streamline, a couple of dolphin kicks. If we can make that like 15 meters of an overall 50-meter lap, imagine how much energy you're saving by pushing off the wall in a tight streamline. So when you're talking about inside the flags, you're trying to shrink that distance inside the flags where you're actually swimming, because that's the most taxing part of it. Because you're moving, you have to breathe, you have to time your breathing, you have to figure out if you're going to breathe every second or every third rep, all these other things, right? It's inefficient to swim. It's more efficient to be in a streamlined position. So you should be, everybody out there, when you're swimming, you should be attacking those walls. As you get off of those walls, it should be the tightest streamline. If there was ever a time to deny yourself a breath just for a little bit, to get a little bit extra push, that time off those walls, because you're going to get those turns. If it's a 50-meter course like we're talking about, and it's a 500-meter swim, then that's 10 down and back, or it's 5 down and back, but 10 overall laps, right? It's because 50 times 10 is 500. So that's how that math works out. Feel pretty good about that one. Don't fact check it. But if you have an opportunity 10 times to touch that wall, whether it's an open turn or a closed turn, if you have an opportunity to use that wall, you should use it to the best of your ability every single time, right? And in finning, by the way, this is a good tip for finning as well. You should be hitting that wall and you should be absolutely just killing yourself in a tight, streamlined position, getting as much time as you possibly can to shorten that distance in between the flags. Because finning, lead arm, trail arm, when you're just kicking and then breathing on rhythm, that is not efficient either. It's less efficient than being in a tight, streamlined position. So use those walls. There we go. There was a question here about Stowe phase 1 and phase 2 that I wanted to hit here, because again, we're kind of in the same bucket, right? So it's kind of like getting ready to go into the pipeline, training, sort of other stuff. Can we talk more on the Stowe pipeline in terms of phase 1 and phase 2? Sam Wellingham, 304. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. So the Stowe phase 1 and phase 2, I'm going to speak in generalities because a lot of this stuff is changing, right? The location that we're going to bring these folks down to, how it is that we're going to select, are we going to bring a whole bunch of people into it? Are all special warfare officers going to be essentially looked at in the same selection? Is Crow going to have their same selection that they need for their stuff? Whatever. Okay. All that stuff to the side. The phase 1 and the phase 2 process is pretty simple. The phase 1 process is a paper board. You're going to send your stuff in there and they're going to check all of the things that are supposed to be in the packet. For the phase 1 process, what I would say, if there's advice in the phase 1 process, and Trent has put this out there as a guy that's looked at 1 million of these packets that come across his desk, do the packet perfectly. What's inside of the packet, the content, like you're a young officer or a young candidate that's trying to do this thing. We understand you're not going to have a PhD thesis, problem statement, 1-pager behind you. You're going to have a very limited amount of experience. We're going to be asking you questions on leadership. You're going to have to like think about and make up because you don't know, you don't have the experience. We're asking you those things for a reason. What I would want you to focus on the phase 1 is everything completely. And this is going to be the queepiest thing ever, but I stole it from Trent. I'll actually give him credit for stealing this one because I think it's dorky. And I want to make sure that you understand that I got it from him, not me. But having that packet together, if it says like packet 1 is your med stuff, packet 2 is your recommendations, packet 3 is whatever else. If you don't order those things correctly, I think you're stupid right away. My initial thing is like, oh, guy couldn't even follow directions in phase 1. Immediately, because we're all human, immediately I go, okay, got to watch out for this dude, can't follow directions. And I've literally said it 100 times. Just as I'm looking, I'm like sitting at my desk and I'm just going through stuff, looking at stuff. And I'm like, nope, that's not, no attachment. No, that's not an attachment. You're stupid. That's literally what I do. I'm like, nope, you forgot to attach it. Nope. I asked you to put your med stuff in packet 1 and you put it in packet 4. And all these things aren't on the same PDF. So I can't just scroll through it. I have to open all these. This is terrible. That's literally what people that are in charge of here. And this is a funny thing to explore as I go on a tangent here. Imagine that you have dedicated your entire life, your family. You've gotten up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You've done everything that my hyperbolic self has asked you to do. You changed your diet. You quit drinking. You woke up. You found something bigger than yourself. You really adhered and you changed your entire life. You adhered to a set of principles that were unmoving. You are a Ronin. And you send your packet. You're so proud of it. You bled for this packet for 2 years. And then you send it to some idiot like me that just wants to go home for the day. And I'm literally clowning you because you didn't put the right signature block on attachment 4. That's a real thing that happens. I swear to God. So do me a favor. Packet. Make your phase 1 packet the best that it possibly can be. Because that's what we're looking at. We're just looking, can you follow directions? Did you put it all in one packet? Is it easy for me to read? Does it not seem like you're trying too hard? People, there are certain packets here too. They'll ask you for a narrative or they'll ask you for a commander's recommendation or recommendations of endorsement. I'm just going to tell you guys, it's really not that important what's in there. People will hit us up and they'll be like, oh, I'm making this thing for my packet, my phase 1 packet. I really want to speak to who I am as a person. Can you help me craft it? And I'm like, bro, can you just format it correctly? I'll be honest with you. If I open this up on my computer, is there going to be a bunch of red underlined words because you didn't spell check it? Because that's like, you can tell me your life story. And I've gotten like 4-page, like people that are like, oh, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. And it's like a 4-page, 3,000 character document. It's like a Rolling Stones piece about how you lived in a car, for 2 years. And that's how you figured out you wanted to be an officer. Tight. But it's got bad punctuation and you use there wrong. Like you didn't know the difference between THYRE and THEIR. So that makes me hate you. So you wasted that time. You know what I mean? So do the packet correctly. Phase 1 packet. Okay. Do the packet correctly. Phase 2, this comes in different flavors. Crows and Stows for a long time had a separate phase 1 and phase 2. We were doing stuff where we were bringing what we were calling phase 2, but really it was a cross trainee selection. We're doing IFAM. We're doing a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't want to get lost in the weeds of what the new program is and whatever else. When you get out of phase 1 is your application process to get to phase 2. Phase 2 is a boiled down assessment and selection where they're going to look at you for attributes that they want as a special warfare officer. That's as plain as I can make it. It is going to be the hardest job evaluation that you've ever had. It is going to be a week of probably more intense physical exercise over a shorter amount of time than even special warfare assessment and selection is currently. And I can say that I was lucky enough to go to 2 Crow selections. So I was a cadre member for 2 Crow selections, the Crow phase 2s up in Washington. Crazy. I was there with JMac. It's crazy. It's intense. Right. I also did some of the enlisted stuff when we were doing that selection for like enlisted folks that would come over as cross trainees. I did that as well. I will tell you the amount of stuff that they're putting. I mean, it is like doing INDOC or doing an assessment and selection. It is like doing that just truncated over 7 days. It is every bit as intense, every bit as physically demanding. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to have to get through there. Like phase 2 is its own beast. But the good thing about phase 2 is, and whatever that program looks like, whether it's going to be all Crows or if they're going to allow the dirty enlisted to come there, or how many times a year it's going to be, like all that stuff will come out in the wash, right? But the point is when you go to this phase 2, that's your job interview, hardest job interview you're ever going to do. And there's a high incidence of selection rates out of phase 2. That's why they do it, right? Because they are going to put you probably through a worse training event, at least on a shorter timeline than assessment and selection is, because they want to see that you're able to handle it. The Crows forever, I mean, they had the highest success rate. Like when a Crow went to get selected out of their phase 2 program, I mean, it was all but a 99% chance that they were going to make it through INDOC, because they'd have to go back through INDOC as a Crow. Like you still had to go back through selection as a Crow student. You were just a prior enlisted dude that got picked up to go do it. So they had a high rate, and the Stows do too. They've got great, their officers do not flag, they do not fail. They're held to a super high standard in there. There are some different physical requirements, so make sure you're checking the packet, the Stowe. You can go actually in our link tree. There is actually everything that you need to be a special warfare operator in the 19 Zulu, so the officer career fields. There is an entire link in there on that whole bad boy that you can go through this entire thing. Training programs, how to submit your packet, contact information for stuff that you need. That's already on our link tree. So if you're thinking about being an officer, go in there and check that out and then start ticking those things down. And then if you need help, as always, hit us up, get on the Discord, and we'll talk about it. So that's as much of the Stowe phase 1 and phase 2 stuff. You asked about kind of like the Stowe pipeline, but that was in the phase 1 and phase 2 stuff. It just is what it is. The phase 1 and phase 2 process, they're vetted. Like they produce people that are going to be successful, and they produce good officers. That's why we have it. So it's good, and it's always changing. Again, we're going to change all of this stuff now. I'm trying to look and see some other like mid stuff. Got that. I'll hit this one right now. Will Ohio State beat Washington? It's from Saltwater 101. I am the Ohio State fan on this podcast. Obviously, you guys know it. So it was the first time, I think, in 20 years, or maybe only the second time that a ranked team has been a single digit favored, like in the betting odds, like single digit points in like 20 years. I think there's only 2 teams that do it. Ohio State was one. I think Oregon might have been the other one. You can fact check that one. All that to say, high upset potential. I got to roll with the boys. We're going to see if Sayin can go into a hostile environment up in the Pacific Northwest. Washington it's going to be great. The weather is going to be fantastic. It is going to be a fall football tilt. Of course, I'm going to go with the Buckeyes. I do not think that we cover the spread. I'll put it out there. I think it's at 7.5 right now. So I would take the Buckeyes, or I would take Washington in the points if I was betting, and I am a betting man. But that's because I think Ohio is always going to let me down. You know, I think that's more of a thing there. Let's talk about some of this other stuff. I want to handle 2 of these at the end. We'll hit this one right here. Wayne Cook, which, and you said SR CCT PJ, requires camping out and rucking the most. ... SR ? I like being out. So thanks for the comment. Appreciate it. So actually, and I can't believe I'm going to do this, but what you described, if you like being out there, if you like being out in the wilderness, SEER is the career field for you. Like the most camping and the most requiring of being out. Like if it's truly, you know, I assume by your hypothetical, I assume the reason that you asked this question and you put PJ, CCT, SR is because you're looking to do something in special operations and actually do like part of the teams, right? So I got it. But I will just say, like, as a plug, because I don't know why, I'm just trying to be nice to a whole bunch of people, other than controllers that I said couldn't shoot and couldn't do employment earlier. But I guess I'm just being nice to other career fields now. So SEER is actually what you want to do if you just want to camp out, be in wilderness. for as much crap as I give Sear, I love Sear dudes. I text Sear dudes and we talk about football all the time. Justin Gordon likes a terrible football team north of Ohio. It's not why I don't like him. I don't like him because he's a Sear guy. No, I'm kidding. Justin came on the podcast. He's awesome. But Sear is an awesome career field, man. Like, it really is. Like, the training that you get to do, the things that you get to do, the breadth of the career field. It's one of my favorite things about it. They've got their hands in everything. And I know that I give them crap about having their little tinkering hands in everything, but there's a ton of stuff that you can do. I mean, if you wanted to go and work adjunct to a dive school, or if you wanted to do parachuting water survival, or if you wanted to get into some of the, super secret stuff that we're doing, out of SEER school and, some of the other really, really cool things that they're doing in the operational side. That's awesome. It's really good. So what I would say for the three, like you're kind of asking like SR, CCT, PJ, who gets kind of like the more field time, man, it's super dependent. It's super dependent on where you go. It's super dependent on what team you're on. What's the vibe of the team? As a PJ, everybody thinks, when I got assigned to the 58th here in Vegas is now no more. So decommissioned, they're spread off to the four winds. But, when I came here back as a young dude, I had just gotten out of AFSOC. I was at the STS and I got the assignment to the 58th and I was like, I don't know how it's going to be on the rescue side of the house and what we're going to do. And I assumed I'd be on, helicopters and flying around and doing the PJ stuff. Right. Especially on the ACC rescue side of the house. And to an extent that was true, but to a much larger extent, we were heavily engaged in like vehicle-based land warfare stuff. Like I spent more time talking about convoys and talking about, how to employ like large, long overlands of tactical teams. And, in some circumstances, getting a helicopter into an area just wouldn't work out, but we could get these other ground-based teams in there. So we spent a lot of time focusing on that. Now, I would never be able to be like, oh yeah, PJs do a whole bunch of ground-based convoy operations, but that's just the time and the context of the team, right? Sometimes you get, especially in the 2-2, the Pacific Northwest, where they can just go out and a lot of those teams, the mountain teams will go out and just ruck and just be out camping and being out in the wilderness for a long time, right? And you get out and you have a whole lot of that. And then you go down like the 2-3 and they're focused on a completely different mission set. You know what I mean? So, but the 2-3 will have times where they're like, oh, we're training up for this specific thing. So we're going to go to this extended wilderness course or whatever else. So it's pretty dependent on where it is that you're going, what the deployment coming up is doing, because that's how we do everything, right? Everything that we do is, what's the next fight? What do we need to get prepared for? Do we need to go to a horseback course in the woods of Montana to figure out how to ride horses just in case we would need to? I mean, I guess I had actually a Stowe that brought that up. He wanted to spend $120,000 on a horseback wilderness course, and no kidding, I look at my boy K-Dub. Shout out to my boy K-Dub, who was the the DO at the time, and I was his hop suit. Just kind of look at him, and we kind of look. Is this serious? And I kind of like look around at the young, and he was a prior. Now here's the thing: is he was a prior CCT. He crossed over, and he just knew how to play the game. Super chill, bro. Super awesome guy. Super like laid back about it. And I literally I look at the slide. I see the price number. I see that it's for riding horses in Montana. And I just kind of like look around. I just look back at him. I'm like, really, sir? And he's like, man, the bros asked. You know what I got to do is the O. The bros asked. So I was just like, all right, fair. Denied. We're not spending $120,000 to teach you how to ride horses in Montana, but I get it. And shout out to you for being a good officer. Shout out to that guy. So it just depends, to answer your question, who's going to spend more time camping or being out in the wilderness, man. If that's really your goal here, is to like have a job that allows you to spend time in the wilderness. Like, I'm not going to tell you that's not an awesome thing. I hope you can find a job that supports that. If that's your true goal, then cool. If you're asking from the operational side of it, like which of the career fields is going to spend more time in the field, maybe I default to like SR, right? If they're going to perform that true reconnaissance thing, if we agree that they're moving towards somewhere that isn't a relevancy, and it's not like combining SR and CCT into the same career field, I don't know who would ever say that. Certainly not me. Listen, guys, I want to make something super clear. Okay. I would never say, as I put these little pillows, I would never say that the capabilities between SR and CCT are easily like put into one thing because they already kind of like do it. And as opposed to like doing all this stuff, you could probably just make it into one, like a single capabilities of a single person. You have like flavors of JTAC and flavors of sniper or whatever else. I would never say that. Okay. I would never say just combine them and it would be easier. We've already got the conventional forces, TAC-P, like already has all that JTACery. They got it. Nice. I just don't, I would never say that you should combine SR and CCT. That's a hot take. It's a hot take. Shouldn't combine them. I didn't say it. I'm just saying it said, you know, I can't, I got a cosign from Matthew on that one. I didn't say it. It's just out there. Maybe we talk about it. I don't know. SR, there's no point to have SR. Huh? Maybe they could help CCTs. We'll see. I'm kidding, everybody. All right. So enough on that. Who's going to do that more? Yes, Ohio State's going to beat Washington. Let's go and check these other ones out here. Make it so I can read. This is an interesting one. Let me make sure that I'm doing. Oh, 2 questions here. So from Joey. So Joey Voschel, 03. Tips on OCP underwaters. Yeah, get better at underwaters. So the OCP, so he's asking about doing underwaters with a uniform on, which we're going to make you do all the time in selection, in assessment, in dive school. Later in your career, you have to take the OFT in a combat uniform now. So you're going to swim. Like every time you take a PT test, you're going to be wearing OCPs when you swim. So you have to get better at it. What I will say is just get better at underwaters. Get better at your cardiorespiratory overall fitness, your VO2 max, all of those things that you're supposed to do that make you better at underwaters will make you inherently better on being in a uniform and doing underwaters. If you can do an underwater, a 20 meter under or a 25 meter underwater, if you can get that done in 4 to 5, I'll say 4 to 6, I'll give you a range, 4 to 6 strokes, you're crushing it. That does not take a whole lot of physiological output. You're not holding your breath for that long. It's like a 20-second breath hold. If you're just crushing in a nice 4 to 6 strokes for whatever, your money. Because what that means is when you put on OCPs, you're looking at like 10, right? So it's going to slow you down a lot. Some people, they're like, oh yeah, I took like 4 times as many strokes in OCPs. Probably not. You were probably just super inefficient at what you were doing. And if you just were super efficient and then wearing a uniform, there'd be natural drag. So really, if you have a 4 to 6 range, you're probably going to look at like 10 for OCPs. That's probably another 10 to 15 seconds of time that you're spent underneath the water. That's 10 to 15 seconds more time of output, right? It's 4 more strokes of output. So you're burning oxygen while you're going. So it's a little bit tougher and it just sucks. Just put the equipment on. I would say something you can get ahead and kind of like getting used to is anytime that we're doing water confidence training to include, swimming around, mask and snorkel, whatever. So, finning is finning, swimming is swimming. Those 2 things should be treated as different. But anytime we're doing anything else really in the pool, you should be wearing booties. You should be wearing a t-shirt. You should be wearing some extra drag just to get you used to it. There's no reason why you can't throw on, even if you don't have OCPs, just throwing on like some long sleeves, just some pants to feel what it's like to have the extra resistance. Like I would want to know that before I go into an event where they're like, now throw on all of your equipment and go swim. I would want to know essentially, hey, how long should it take me to do a 25 meter underwater in OCPs? Okay, it takes me about 12 strokes as opposed to my normal 7 or 8. Okay, like that's good information to have. So you're not surprised by it. But I will tell you, like it just sucks. You're going to put that uniform on and that is going to be it. We're going to handle some of these other ones. These are some really good questions at the end. I'm going to try to hit some of these quick hitters in between. Do you think it's feasible for the Air Force to have its own specialty schools? Example, free fall. So this is great from 1NTB. So thanks. Underscore. So yeah, perfect world. Yeah. We'd have all of our own schools and we wouldn't compete for school slots and you could organize them and we could say when they start, when they graduate, and then you could have a clean pipeline for all the way through. Is it reasonable, pragmatic, or even logical to think that the Air Force can run its own free fall school? No, it's absolutely. Who's going to instruct it? So we're going to spend X amount of money. We already tried this, by the way. We tried to stand up a free fall school. It did not go well. That's why we're not talking about a free fall school now. This happened in the late 2000 teens, right? So 2015 really through 2020, right? Like we tried to do this. It didn't work. The Army still owns jumping. So speaking specifically about free fall and some of the barriers that we have to it, is it Air Force says they do jumping. They don't. We jump for the Army because it's their regulations, and they just bless us with the right to do parachuting, right? Essentially, that's how it works. The Army owns jumping for everybody. Like, they have the regulations. They tell you what you need to have for your physical. They do all these other things. The Air Force does things a little bit different in some contexts, right? But overall, jumping, period, the Army owns it. USASOC owns jumping. They're the command that tells you what you got to do if you're going to leave an aircraft and then deploy parachute, right? To get accredited through those guys, to get approved through those guys, and then all kinds of other stuff. Like, so it's like, let's say that we did have our own free fall school. Tight. That'd be super sweet. Okay, who's going to instruct it? You're going to take PJs and combat controllers off the line because we don't have enough people to go on deployments. And if there's a surge that happens, if there's some big war that's coming up, which it always looks like there's a big war coming up, where we get, like, those dudes aren't going to want to instruct it. Free fall school. It's hard enough for us to find people that want to go to Yuma as an adjunct instructor, because we have instructor spots down there. You guys all know, like, I've had friends that, instructed at the free fall school. It's great. And it's a great 4 years for those dudes. But it's oftentimes hard for us to pull a dude off. Guys are like, I don't want to go, and I don't want to just go jump. So now you're talking about having an Air Force only school that we're spending money on, that we're spending resources on for our cohort of people. But who's going to instruct it? Who's going to fund it? How are we going to get that approved through the Army? Why is the Army? We had to move heaven and earth just to get the combat controllers to be able to teach a static line course, like the static line jump master course, to get approved by the Army. But they're constantly being reevaluated by the Army. So the Army can bless them off to be like, yes, you can teach Air Force dudes how to be a jump master, and it's joint certified, which is the whole thing here. So do I think it's feasible for the Air Force to have its own specialty schools? No. I think dive school was a great move. Like, dive school, when we came up with dive school to assuage the Army problem, and like, we really do need our own dive school. Like, PJs inherently have a salvage dive mission. The rebreather mission, I got it. It's cool. It's sexy. They're at the highest tier 1 units, they're using that stuff for infill. I got it. I think everybody should be trained on it. I am of the mind that you should be getting dive in the pipeline, to move away from dive, to take that capability away from people who are graduating the pipeline. Never made any sense to me. Dive school is awesome because it cleaned up a lot of those things. I think that dive school is a great example, though, of, man, this was like a super niche thing that we were able to do kind of on the cheap, right? Like, we didn't stand up our own building for it. We took a room in an existing huge dive center at NDSTC, and we just said, like, this is our school now, but it's a room. You know what I mean? Like, it's a couple of trucks and a couple of boats. It's not, there's Navy EOD teams and SEAL teams and whatever that you'll train with when you go down to Panama City. It's a huge thing, right? Like, we didn't make that whole thing. Like, we didn't make a 50-meter dive platform and 5 pools and hundreds of boats and thousands of personnel. We didn't stand that up. So when we say, like, oh, well, Air Force made their own dive school, yeah, but did we? or did we put a sign on a room one day that said, this is the Air Force dive school? Because that's what happened. I went to the second class. I'll tell you, that's what happened. Right. I think I was the third class that graduated from the Air Force dive school. But I think it's awesome. Dive school is legit. Like, they put out, obviously their data and their performance speaks for itself, right? Dive school was a good move. When we start talking about these other pipeline schools, number one, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze for as much money. I don't know where we're going to get anybody to do it. And then what does it really fix? It fixes some of those things that we're talking. We go all the way back to the beginning in this long rant that started this episode. We're talking about, like, pipeline changes and optimizing the pipeline, because that's what we're trying to do, right? So from an optimizing the pipeline, if I had a magic wand and I could just say, yeah, we're going to just magic up people that can work this full time, and the funding is there, and it can be on site, and we don't have to spend, whatever, just magic wand, everything's perfect. Yeah, give us our own free fall school. That'd be great. But pragmatically and realistically, not only do I think that it's not a possibility, I just don't think it's a logical thing that we should even be talking about. But I'll go as far as to say, I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think the Air Force needs its own free fall school. I don't think we need, let the Army run their free fall school. Let them run their jump master courses, whatever else. We can do additional training on top of that. It's just like everything else. Like, it sucks. You have to play Army for a little bit, but you get your course done, and then you can go on to the other things that are job specific or more advanced for us. And that's not to take away from anybody else in the military jumping community. I'm not saying PJs are more advanced, but we are. What I'm saying is, gotta laugh from Matthew. I know when one lands when Matthew laughs out loud. That's how I know. But it's not to take away from anybody else, right? I'm saying that there are other job specific stuff that we need to do. I'm totally fine at this point. Like I've completely evolved on it. I was a big, like, get all of our own stuff. We should have our own command. It should be like TRADOC or the West Coast teams. Like if you go out to the SEAL architecture out in Coronado, it's crazy. They've got all the teams, all the support. Everybody's lined up. Everybody supports it. It's awesome. It's all in-house. It's great, right? Great training location. Got it. Super cool. I wanted that from the beginning. I just don't think that's realistic, and I don't think we need to. I think we do better by, and maybe it's a little bit me of like, history. Like I like going to an Army school and understanding what they have and getting an Army flavor. And I like going over and training with the Marines, and I like going over with our international SOC counterparts. I think that's what makes combat controllers, pararescuemen, special reconnaissance, TACP. I think that's what makes us different, is we can engage in all of those different team rooms. And unless you go out and you touch all those other places, like I think there is a little bit of a magic in the mixing, right? Like maybe from a logistical beam counter sort of, am I trying to get everybody through the pipeline? Would having our own free fall school, would that make everything way simpler? Sure. Yeah, I guess, from a beam counter or whatever, but more of a touchy feely, like, but that makes us who we are. I want my guys to go to the Army school and then get their distinguished graduate and make friends with that whole group of people, so that when they see them downrange later, they're like, oh, cool. I don't think you don't really get that from the Air Force side of the house. Like, because when it's an Air Force only school, like those dudes just go off to the teams, but those teams are going out and touching everybody else, right? Like we are a joint, intercapable, and interoperable force. That's what SOCOM is. That's what AFSOC is to SOCOM, right? We want to give you operators that work on all these other things. And I think when we talk about the pipeline, a lot of the stuff that guys don't talk about well, like they don't communicate why they have an issue with it. But when you talk to the older dudes and they're like, well, I don't like the way that you're changing this, they can't articulate it, but it's because that's who makes us who we are. The magic is in that mixing. We talk all the time that as a pararescueman, as a combat controller, TACP, you're going to be thrown into a team room of special operators that are probably more experienced than you. They've done more things than you. They're older. They're smarter. They've been to more schools. They've actually done the thing that you're briefing them on right now. They've probably dropped live. As a controller, there's a JTAC in that room on your first deployment that's dropped live and you haven't, and now you're the guy. As a PJ, there's a medic there that's actually treated mass casualties, that's done technical rescue stuff. They've done more than you have. You haven't. We expect you to go into those team rooms and be that confident, low rank E3, E4, E5. We want you to go into those rooms and to be able to handle yourself in that scenario as the one random dude, the one random Air Force guy. I have to be able, as a pararescue team sergeant, to stand up and go, listen, this is what happens if stuff hits the fan. If you need PR, if we need CSAR, here's how the chain of command works. Here's how we're going to engage. Here's how you get a hold of me. Here's where I can be. Here's how I can buy down your risk. I need you to do that from the rip. I think there is a little bit of magic in the mixing, the way that we do our pipeline, where we send people out to these different schools, because you're like, and we all laugh at it, right? You're like, you go to airborne school and it's 3 weeks of Air Force appreciation. You're like, oh, great. But you get to see how big Army does stuff. When you go down to the dive school, it's awesome that you're in this Air Force dive school at the NDSTC, but you get to see how the Marine Corps does their dive training, and the Navy, and how EOD does it different than the SEALs, and how there's some Rangers are down there, or there's some guys from group going down that are getting ready to go do their check rides, or getting to do their like deep water checks and stuff like that. That's legit, because you make those connections. I think there's a magic in the mixing, and that's what makes us who we are. And I think when we talk about these pipeline changes, or should we get these new schools or whatever, people have these big feelings, but they don't communicate why they have the big feelings. And it's because that makes us who we are. Those are the parts of the job. Like there is a part of me that knows no matter what the scenario is, I can walk into a room, and as long as I am doing my level best, I'm going to be of value to that team. And maybe I never met the team before, but in that moment, I need confidence in the people that go into those rooms, and it's been, I've had it from both sides. I've been the guy going into the room to try to sell the plan. And I've been the guy that's like, okay, well, I think one of my subordinates now, like one of these guys, he's ready to go sell the plan. It's time to let him go do that. We need those people to do that. And I think you learn that in the pipeline, whether you realize it's a training event or not. When you go and you hang out with the Army, and you hang out, and TACP guys go and they spend their life just wasting away in Fort Leonard Wood, but they're understanding bigger parts of the picture. So that when the music stops and somebody looks at me on target years later, I know how the Army does it, how the Navy does it, how these people are going to react, what tactics these people are going to use. I know I can forecast what these people are going to do. And in that moment, that's when the magic comes together, and you are that Air Force special operator. You are that guy on the ground that's bringing Air Force centric effects to bear for the larger SOCOM architecture. That's the end state of all this pipeline stuff that we're talking about. That's who I want you to be there. And I think in that middle, which is what we talk about here, the pipeline, what's the magic in the mixing? What's the right pipeline? What's the right attributes? How do we select out? How important is physical stuff? We're looking at that middle ground to get to this end state. That's always what we're looking at over here is how do we get to that person when the music stops, that they bring calm to chaos, that they bring accurate fires on somebody that meant to do harm to Americans or our allies, that they were able to save the life of somebody that on their worst day called us and we answered that call. That's what we want to do. We want to provide real-time information across the special reconnaissance suite of capabilities. We want to provide that information to the larger SOCOM architecture from an air-minded perspective to get after these things that they cannot do without us. SOCOM cannot exist without the Air Force. The Air Force Special Operations Command is the tip of that spear and how we bring value to SOCOM. The question is in the magic in the mixing. Do we need new schools? Do we need a new pipeline? All that other stuff, right? Like it's kind of, look at me just bringing it all together for you in one big package here at the end of it. That's kind of like always what we're talking about is how do we get to that end state, right? So there's going to be stuff in the middle, whether it's, do we own this school? Do we not own this school? Do we train this thing? Do we not train this thing? It's always trying to get to that end state. So there you go. Quick one here. Thanks for that question. It's a good question too. So from Camden, is 30 miles a week too much? I assume we're talking about running here. My dev coach is a retired PJ. Tell him I said, what's up? He told me to chill and cut back to 18. So a lot of these things, I don't know what your training load looks like. I don't know. I assume that first of all, he's a PJ. So I automatically assume he's right. He's probably super good looking, probably got great hair, probably doesn't like me. I think those are other like truisms of the PJ community. So he probably gave you good data-driven advice for why you specifically should be taking it back to 18 miles a week. Usually for me, if I'm just prescription across people for time on feet, stress, and then your actual ability to get better at practicing running, I tend to go on the lower end of Taylor Starch here. Is 20 to 25 miles a week is about right as a starting point for me. I had a really good DM. Somebody was like, well, how are people running? Like, there are some people that are saying they're running 30 miles a week. How are they doing that? And I'm like, bro, they're waking up an hour and a half earlier than they have to every day. And they're not missing their training. They're treating it like a second job. Like they're making it happen because it's important to them. But all that aside, 20 to 25 miles, that's about right. Keep in mind, in durability for the unspecified amount of time that you're going to spend in durability, right? Call it durability week, but the timeline can shift depending on how good your team does. In that durability phase, you're running 22 to 27 miles a day. You're averaging like 20 to 22 miles a day on your feet running around there, right? If you don't have an appropriate training volume running specifically beforehand, and again, running is the number one indicator for success in the pipeline. I can't say it enough. If you're a faster runner, you're going to graduate. If you're a faster runner, you're going to graduate. If you're a faster runner, Matthew, you're going to graduate. Okay. So I can't say that enough, right? Now, as far as what volume is right for you, I would look at output. If you're a runner that is running great, and like, let's say that because context is important, right? Let's say that you're running 18 miles a week, but you can hold a 6-minute mile for 3 miles. You're seeing good input, good output. You're seeing, great effects from your running program. I'd say keep doing what you're doing. That sounds great. 18 miles sounds like it works great for you. And that was great input. I think from an overuse perspective, I think that's probably like when we try to cap mileage, and I can't speak for your retired PJ, awesome dude. Good guy, shirt off his back sort of dude, salt of the earth, I'm betting. Probably from the Midwest. I could keep going. Like, I'm just trying to think about all the PJ stuff now. So, I mean, super good. He'd mow your grass. Like if you were gone on deployment, he'd be the type, but he wouldn't tell you about it. You know, your wife would text you like 2 days later, be like, hey, you know, Mike came over and mowed the grass. He didn't even say anything. He just kind of, I wasn't even here. Came over, mowed the grass and left. Probably that kind of guy. So he's probably good there. But when we talk about capping mileage, anytime that anybody's like, oh, they told me I was running too much, we're trying to avoid injury or overtraining, right? So you want to find that sweet spot where you're still progressing every single time and you're giving yourself progressive overload. That's how we get better, right? You don't get better doing the same thing. You get better by giving your body stress, and then your body that couldn't get to the stress before, like they could only get there for like short periods. Now you're pulling that line up, and then you give yourself more stress and you keep going, right? You should be able to do that through your program. That's the end state. It's constant up and right progression. You're constantly progressing towards your goal, right? So I can't tell you, there is no magic number for how many miles you're supposed to run a week. If you were running 30 and you weren't seeing an output that you were like, if you're not getting better, if you're running 30 miles a week and you're not getting better, then maybe I would take 10 miles off a week. And I'd be like, no, listen, I just want to get faster. I want to do sprint workout for a couple of weeks just to see if we can get a little bit faster at these things. Like if you have a desired output that you're doing, maybe taking the training mileage down is good, right? If you're trying to avoid injury, sure. Yeah. Taking miles off your body, especially when you're getting ready to go in. Like I recommend everybody, you know, take your training volume, take about 80% of your training volume for the last week that you're going, and just do that. Like if you're running 10 miles as your long, slow distance planned workout of the day, man, just take just run 8 miles that day and just feel good, feel loose, and kind of like taper in to when you're actually going to go, you know, ship or go perform or go do whatever you want. So I can't tell you, like, what do I think is right? I think, you know, a 20 miles minimum. Like if you're not running 20 miles a week, like you're not serious about this. Like, and really until you're talking 20 to 25 miles every single week that you're doing in addition to your other training. And that doesn't include calisthenics. That doesn't include pool work. That doesn't include other cardio. That doesn't include zone 2 cardio. That doesn't include getting your steps. It doesn't include anything else until you're really at that 25 mile a week minimum input. You're not really that serious. Like if you're talking to me running 15 miles a week, you serious, bro? You're going to run that before lunch and durability. You're going to run that with a ruck on, bro. 100-pound ruck with all your stuff in it for a week. Like, don't talk to me. Like, don't bring me the weak sauce of I train 10 miles a week. You're not doing enough. And Taylor Starch is going to weigh in on this. He's going to be much more aggressive than I am about how much cardio and how much you should be training. Training volume is a huge deal. So there we go. Wrap it up there. Let me look at these other ones here. Talked about that. The 30 miles a week is too much. So again, dependent on you, but I think we beat that dead horse. We're going to hit this one just because I love it from our boy Tack P Dill. What's up, Dilly? Who would win in a fight, Peaches or Trent? Now this is, I explored this. When I tell you the depths that I went into here, I mean, I went into tails of the tape. I was looking up, like, you know, Peaches is sometimes listed 5'3". It depends on what, what talent agency is putting him out there. He's like 5'7" on Grindr. I don't know why. That app was really nice too. I get a lot of messages from there. A bunch of dudes just want to hang out. It's really cool. It's super weird. They're aggressive, but I mean, it's a good friend app, I guess. But Peaches is 5'7" on there. I was really looking, you know, who would win in a fight. The one thing, so Trent will fool you. He'll pretend like he doesn't care. Trent's got a little bit of ground. Okay. So the ground game, it's hard to choke somebody that's shaped like a fire hydrant, which is why I hesitate to kind of give the edge to Trent if it goes to the ground, because Peaches is always on the ground, right? Like that's his home. Right. He's closer to the ground. He's closer to earth than literally everybody I know. I mean, even my toddler, you know, Peaches doesn't have to bend down to see my toddler, right? They're eye to eye. He is 20 months old. Okay. And by the way, gorgeous blonde hair. No clue where that came from. My wife and I have a very hard conversation, I think, probably coming up sometime soon, where this blonde kid come from. Peaches and the blonde kid, dead on, eye to eye, right? So Trent's got a little bit of ground game. I think Peach is going to be impossible to knock out. I think Trent is a little bit lanky, and he's got trash armbar defense. He's always leaving his arm out. So I think Peaches could probably capitalize there if it goes to the ground. I think here is just there's something. I think maybe I just give it too much credence, or maybe it's professional deference, but I just think that Peaches has a little bit of extra crazy. Like Trent's more of like sociopathic crazy. Like he would like kill an entire village of people and just sleep it off. He'd be like, he would eat a popsicle and go to bed. But like Peaches is just like a different kind of crazy. So I think Peaches in this scenario, I think I would have to give it, we'd have to see it. I mean, if we could set something up for charity, I don't know, some sort of way that we could give back to the community and just have Peaches and Trent absolutely fight it out to the death. Although here's the thing for the business that isn't going to be good. Trent is largely inconsequential to the day-to-day operations of One's Ready. Okay. That's as nice as I can be about it. And I don't think Trent, I'm sorry. I don't think that Trent is going to tell me that this is wrong. I think he's going to agree with me here. Largely, if we lost Peaches in this scenario, because the question is who would win in a fight. If it's a fight to the death and we lose Peaches, whoa, we are there. You know, like when couples, it's really sad, but like a grandmother will lose her grandfather, and there's this weird time where the family's like, well, I don't even, he paid all the bills, so I don't even know who to pay for this, and it's like the sad thing. That's what would happen if Peaches left One's Ready. I don't even know how to log in. I didn't have the login. I went live on a different platform, guys. And I had to call Peaches to help me. And I had a producer. Matt was in the background. Matthew was trying to help me and couldn't. If we lose Peaches, man, I got to, Trent, you can't win this fight. As a matter of fact, if you are winning this fight, Trent, now I'm saying I'm jumping in to help Peaches. Dill, you're tearing this family apart. You see what you did with your question there? Now there's a weird scenario where I have to fight Peaches and Trent because I got to protect Peaches, and it's just a weird thing. There we go. So we're going to hit 2 here that are really, really good. I wanted to save these questions to the end. We talked about the pipeline stuff. I'm trying to clean this up to make sure that nobody that had a question here didn't get answered, because that's important to me. We do not. Here's a great one. Just with the modification, the Air Force PT standard, is there any plans of the IFT, OFT changing? No, not now. So the OFT, the operator fitness test, there's different tiers to it. There's tiers 1, 2, and I believe 3. So the OFT, which is our fitness test, was always completely separate than the Air Force thing. And this caused us a lot of pain, right? Like when we used to take what was called the AFSOC. So it was like before we had the OFT, there was the AFSOC, and it was just like a hyped up version of the IFT. So it was a 3-mile run, pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, technically flutter kicks, and then you'd have to go do a swim. You'd have to do a 1-mile swim, right? And you had to pass the AFSOC. Well, and then a lot of times, so that was the AFSOC test. That's what you had to take to be an operator, right? That was in our training stuff. Like that was our accepted fitness test. That's what you had to take. Well, the Air Force didn't recognize it. So we would have to take the Air Force fitness test too. So I'd have to take the half of that with no swim. I'd have to go take the Air Force version, and then I'd have to go take my own version to be a qualified PJ that could go deploy, because it was part of our stuff, and they didn't recognize each other. They ended up working it out to where there was like some weird like in-between period where the Air Force would basically recognize. They would take like your 1.5 miles of your 3-mile time and like let you do that. And then they would take your cal numbers and just like plug it in. And then they would say like you ran your Air Force PT test, but you just did it inside of and you could do it at once. It was crazy. There were definitely times where I was getting ready out of Vegas. I was getting ready to deploy. And in 1 week, I took 3 separate PT tests to make sure that I was ready to deploy. I had to take one for the Air Force. I had to take one for the team, because we have one on the team that we took that like, this is your pre-deployment stuff. Like we had a whole separate battery that was in one troop that we were like, hey, unless you could do these things, like this was our standard, like this is the operator standard, you have to do these things. And then you had to do the Air Force Special Operations, the AFSOC, that AFSOC test that I talked about. So there was 1 week, no kidding, where we did 3, and you would just laugh about it. You'd be like, all right, guys, in this part of pre-deployment training, we're going to do all the PT tests this week. So be ready, week 2 of the spin up. We're basically going to get together. We're going to do the Air Force test, the AFSOC. We'll hit our physical evaluation test and our other, whatever pre-deployment stuff that we're going to do on the team. But we're going to do the physical stuff all in this period. So we had to do it all the time. So those tests were always separate. We ended up getting a waiver. There was this waiver that they ended up put out where the Air Force finally recognized, but this was late in the game. This was like 2019, 2020 or something. The Air Force finally was like, okay, you guys are doing more stuff than we are. So we're just going to go like, agree that you guys are fit, I guess. And we'll file a waiver so you don't have to take 2 separate tests. They basically let our test count for their test. So that's where it was for a little bit. And then we came up with the OFT, and now all that stuff is done, right? Like all that stuff is figured out. Long story short, no, the new Air Force general test probably is not going to drive a change into the OFT. The OFT, because they're separate tests, right? Like the Air Force fitness test is saying, this is what you need to be in the Air Force. That's what the fitness test is. Are you in the Air Force? This is how fit you got to be in the Air Force. The OFT is a completely separate test. And however the Air Force got those numbers, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? The OFT, we got the numbers, we got that battery of tests, right? The OFT is the fitness test that we take to say you're ready to do the job. We got those requirements from the job. So if you're going to like, okay, well, you're doing the 5-10-5 drill that you do in the OFT. It's an agility drill. And you're like, well, why am I doing this? Well, because we're going to ask you to dead sprint, like shoot, I'm up, he sees me, I'm down, I've got to sprint. I want to know how good you are at sprinting. That's what we're doing with that. Like, it's not just throwing a med ball over your head or running with some kettlebells. We want to see how good you are doing weighted runs. We want to see your grip strength. We want to see all these other things, right? The OFT, we have it from job requirements. The Air Force saying that you need to run 2 miles doesn't matter to our job requirements. Our job requirements, the OFT was always the job. And then the Air Force was doing their other stuff too. And there was just this weird time where we'd have to play the Air Force game as opposed to where it is now. We have our own fitness tests. Those are job requirements. The 2-mile run is not going to change. Those job requirements that are still valid, vetted, and that's how we train. So those 2 things completely separate. There we go. So we're going to hit 2 things here at the end. The one that I'm going to hit first is sort of and it's a good question. Do you think the Air Force needs a culture shift? If so, how do we go about it? 1NTB. That is a great question. So I'm going to answer it directly because I like to do that. Yes, I think the Air Force needs a culture change. I think the military needs a culture change. I think the DoD needs a culture change. I think culture needs a culture change. I've been super clear about that. You can go follow me for all the spicy takes over on Aaron Loves America, over on X, wherever it is that you want to follow me on the War Room and hear my takes there. Like, that's for another platform and another time. But I think that we all need a rebaselining. We've got the generals that are coming in for this meeting that they don't know. There's a lot of funny jokes floating around. Like I said from the very beginning, like, I hope it's something super. I hope they're going in for like a no notice drug test, like something that just like takes your day up. And then I hope that they have to go through like sexual assault training, like the bare bones, like sexual assault safety briefing sort of training. And then I hope they have to go do weeds and seeds afterwards. Like, I hope they have to go out and do just like a landscaping project. Like, I'm hoping that's why Pete Hegseth has called every single general from all of the services to Quantico next week. I hope it's something just to waste their time. There's rumors that it's going to be a PT test because he's like, hey, like, from the top down, like, I want you guys into it. I hope that's true. That's funny. I've made the joke. This is probably not the most appropriate joke. And I want to say, I am not calling for violence. I'm not advocating violence in any way. Of course, I don't align with despotic dictators who slaughtered millions. Okay. But Saddam Hussein got everybody together in one of these meetings one time. And he did it because he had like audio of all these people speaking against him and his government. And then name by name, he read out like 68 people, and those people were escorted out. And then they were summarily killed outside. I laughed. I was like, maybe Pete Hegseth is going to be like, hey guys, notice a lot of stuff on social media. Just wanted to get everybody in a room. Everybody cool? Are we cool? Because it seems like we're not cool. I hope it's a come to Jesus talk. I don't know. I'm excited. But, you know, to the overall point, yeah, I think we need a culture change, man. I think that we need to, like, GWOT was what GWOT is. You know, I can look back at the time as a veteran
as a GWOT veteran. Ugh.
Disgusting. But as a guy that went through it, man, like I am totally willing to say the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, the mundane, the tragic, the traumatic, all of it. I accept all of it for exactly what it is. I accept going into Iraq on a spurious claim of weapons of mass destruction, to why are we in Afghanistan, to what are we doing here, what's the end state, what's the plan, all the way through the retreat and the terrible stuff that happened at HKIA, all the way through it. Its entire body of work. That's what I got in to do, right? I got in September 13th of 2001. You know, I was in the recruiter's office. I shipped out. I was in basic training on January 2nd of 2002, right? And I got out in 24. So I got in to do GWOT, man. Like, I get it. But we can't look back at GWOT. We're really good at those things. There's a lot of good things to take from it, a lot of terrible things to take from it. And there's a whole other conversation. Should we be there? Is it ever valuable? Did we get the blood and treasure that we desired? Okay, that's a conversation for another point. What we got to do is we got to focus on where we're going from now. Okay, GWOT is not the last 20 years. We are in 5th generation warfare. As 5th generation warfare, go read the book, Stealth War, Charles Spalding, great book, talking about China and the 5th generation warfare that he thought that we were in back then. I mean, this book came out quite a while ago. So we are in 5th generation warfare with China, with Russia, with our adversaries that mean to do us harm, to include violent extremist organizations the world over that are just looking for us to get distracted with other stuff and be able to do that. So, you know, the things that we're trying to get after here are serious business, and we have to be serious people. And for a long time, and especially at the end of my career, and I'm going to keep politics and my personal feeling aside, the overwhelming thing that led to my feelings on it now are that we lost sight. Something happened in really 2015 onward where we started kind of getting distracted. We were bogged down in GWOT. We still had dudes that were sort of going to some of these other locations, and, you know, some other stuff would pop up and we get distracted by stuff. But it started almost being, you know, the end of GWOT was like the end of the deployment. You know, you go to a deployed location at first and it's tense and it's nobody knows, like, you don't have communications half the time. And then you show up to that place 2 years later and they've got a Starbucks and they've got a TGI Fridays. And you're like, what is happening? Like, where did you get, you guys have a Pizza Hut in Kandahar. I ate at it. It was magnifique. A little taste of home, a little stuffed crust pizza. Fantastic. Great. Not mad at it. Get your Baskin Robbins. Down in Kandahar. Okay. Down in J-Bad. God forbid you don't have your green beans. Okay, I got it. But that's kind of how this whole thing went, was by the end of it, it had become something that it never was. And I think that it's okay for me to say that, you know, I look at people and I've always been super clear about my career. Like, I was only really valuable in very narrow things. Like, at the tactical level, I had a very narrow skill set that I was good at, but it was very, like, I had to be pointed in that direction because all I got in was to do the GWOT thing. I didn't want to do the political part of I accepted the bureaucracy because they gave me the violence. That's what I got in for. I got in to go fight. I accepted the rules of your game and all the mundanity and the show up and wait. And we're closed for training every Thursday. Just, you only have 1 day off of training in this 14-day cycle. And it just so happens to be a random Thursday afternoon where you can go get your pay fixed. But I walk into that stupid section and they're closed for unit training. And what they're doing is they're out playing Frisbee. I can see them. Like, I can see you from your office playing ultimate Frisbee on Thursday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're closed for training, right? I accepted all that bullshit because I got to go downrange. I accepted the rules of your game. We talk about, giving up parts of yourself for service. It's what you have to do. I'm going to be clear about this because there's a misconception out there. You never give up your rights, period, ever, for anything. They're big R, God-given rights, unless you sign a contract with your creator that you get to give up your rights. You can't give up the love of your parents. You can't be like, I give up my father's love. I give it up. I'm not doing it. You can't do that. It still exists. It's still a thing. Those rights are yours. You never give them up. But I was willing to adhere to the UCMJ and go, okay, cool. There are limits on what I have to do in order to be part of this organization, but it's because you gave me GWOT. That's all we wanted to do for a huge generation of people. That's all they wanted to do. And that was a good thing. And it's a bad thing too, right? There's tons of people that, GWOT is not the regular military. GWOT was a wacky 20-year period. And inside of that, there were wackier periods that happened, right? And, specifically like 2015 on. That was a super wacky period inside of a larger wacky period that was going on inside of a huge wacky period that's the world, right? So it's like Inception. It gets deeper as you peel the layers back. But there's a whole generation of folks that are trying to figure out, like, there's a whole generation of people like me that accepted all the nonsense because they got the GWOT. They accepted the rules of your game because the output was good enough. We need a culture change in the sense that I feel it's hard for me. Like, if I was going to make that pitch, right? Like, I just encapsulated, at least from my optic, what being a dude that did special operations in GWOT, what we did, right? Because everything was to that end state, and good, bad, or indifferent. Hindsight is 2020. We have more information now than we did back then. But just as a young dude that was waking up in Iraq or Afghanistan or Africa, for me, I looked to the left and I looked to my right, and I knew that I had a mission that we were going to do. And in the end, it was about those people that I was serving with, and not the overall machinations of government or politics or culture or all these other things. It was that I knew that we had a mission that we were going to go do, and I had the best people in the world to the left and the right of me, and they wouldn't fail. My rigor wouldn't just half-ass my shoot and cause me to die on a simple training thing. Like, he is going to kill himself to make sure that shoot's packed right. And the radio guys are going to do the same thing. And the PJ's out on target. We're going to take all of that input that you just gave us, and we are going to save somebody's life on their worst day. When they thought they were going to die and they called for help, we were there. Everybody that supported that mission was part of that culture. And I think we've lost that connection. I think in 2015, kind of to where we see it now over that 10-year period, which is wild to say, that's 10 years of this thing happening. I think we lost that connection. I think we need a culture shift, the Air Force, but really the military writ large. We need a culture shift back to lethality. What are we here to do? What are we here to do? How does this support doctrine? How does this support warfighting? How does this cement America as the number one superpower? We are the gorilla in the room. We are technologically more advanced than every single other peer country, if we want to call them that, than anybody. And you can talk to me about China and the threat of all these, whatever. I don't care. We need to focus on, just like the pipeline should have an overall end state, and you're constantly focused on, what do we get to this end state? How do we get to that operator? From you getting into the special operations community, it should be, how do I get through selection? How do I get through these pipeline schools? What's my overall end state? Am I constantly doing things that get us towards the end state? Train specifically, train efficiently, task organize yourself to get to your end state, and then bring your teammates along with you. That's how we succeed overall in any organization, right? We're giving you the building block. And then notice, like, I'm connecting it to where you are getting into special operations, because I want to let you know, like, the culture changes with you. The culture changes with each individual person that hears this and gets into the Air Force and decides that that's not the culture that they want to be involved in. They want to be involved in a professional culture, somebody that gets after these things, and it's better than we ever are. It comes in wide-eyed, plenty of motivation, you got your whole life in front of you, bringing in good ideas, bringing in more technology than we ever had. How do we get that population of people to care about it like my generation of GWOT did? Right? How do I get you guys to care about it? Because I need you to be able to do those same things. Again, September 10th of 2001, nobody knew that we were going to be on horseback in Afghanistan a day later. We had no clue. That Monday, September 10th, 2001, we had no clue what the next 20 years would hold for us. There was no way that the GWOT generation waking up on that day, guys like me that are old, that are retired, not me, Peaches, Trent, all of our friends that are, you're either still in and they're the shot callers in the career fields, or they're out after serving 20 years, 2 decades of their life in far-flung places where people are trying to kill them. People are trying to kill you for being there. They hate you. They're trying to kill you, and you have to kill them for it first to come home to your family, because that's what the job is. I need you to care about that, even not knowing what comes up next. That's where the GWOT, this thing that we're calling GWOT veterans, people like Valhalla VFT and Jay and Jake and all these other people that are in the space that I think are doing it the right way, right? They're desperately trying to encapsulate the lessons learned so that you can feel in my head, why did I go to the recruiter in September of 2001 when I knew we were going to war? Why did I care? Was that something about me? Was it my upbringing? What made my generation of folks answer the call? Because I'm one of hundreds of thousands that did. And that includes first responders. That includes people that saw the firemen rush in to September 11th, rush into there to risk their lives to go save people. There's hundreds of thousands of people that decided they wanted to be a fireman that day, or be a police officer that day, or a paramedic, or a nurse, or serve in some way, right? There's hundreds of thousands of Americans. How do I communicate that to this generation of people to get them to care like that, so that when the call, because I don't know when the call is coming, but I know that it's coming. I didn't know my entire life growing up. I grew up in the sweetest time in America, bro. I was born in 1980. You're telling me I got to be a kid in the 80s. And then as I was like 10 through 20, I got to do the 90s. Do you guys know what happened then? Limp Bizkit happened then, guys. Are you kidding me? I got to live through Limp Bizkit. So I existed in a time that was before and after Limp Bizkit, which I think we can agree. Like, I know that BC is kind of like how we view time, but I think culturally in America, it's really like pre-Limp Bizkit and after Limp Bizkit. So PLB, ALB. I got to span that time, homie. Like, I mean, honestly, the best childhood that you could have, right? In America, middle America, Ohio, get out of here. I wasn't thinking about going to war with people that lived in a place that I couldn't pronounce. I couldn't point out on a map. No clue. But there was something in me, there was a story that I heard. There was something that I can't put my finger on, that when that call went up, I answered it. And that's not to aggrandize myself, because again, I'm one of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people who answered that call that day. And again, we could talk about that day and whatever. But I need somebody that when that flag goes up, that they go, okay, yep, I'm in. Because this culture of the Air Force Special Operations, the military, DOD, America, I think we need a culture shift back towards who we are. And it's it weighs on me, the upcoming birth of our nation, the celebration of 250 years that we've been here. Empires aren't supposed to last that long, homie. 200 years is about it, right? For this American experiment that we've been doing. We're doing pretty good, considering we're the most benevolent force that's ever existed on the face of humanity for good, ever. We've brought the floor of the entire world. This country has raised the floor for civilization. That's not hyperbole. That's what we've done as Americans. That's who we are. That's not just what we do or where we live. That's who we are. We're Americans. We need to shift back towards those core principles. We need to shift back in the culture to doing what's important. What's important right now to get after these fights? How do I message to these young kids to get them to care like the GWOT veterans do? That's important. We got to do it right now. We got to do it right now. Get in front of them. Make them care. Set them up for a time where they care as much as we did. Give you the information. Let you be ready to make the choice when you're ready to make the choice. We can't tell you when that is. I would like for you, and again, I'm not here to recruit you, but how do we change the culture? You get in and you change the culture. You can, this is why I love being an instructor, man. I love being an instructor. I love pumping out. When you talk about Air Force PJs, You're talking about maybe 200 to 300 on the active duty side. You're talking about like way more on the Guard and Reserve side, right? So, but I mean, you're always hovering around 500 total people, right? So let's say that, you just use 500 as your standard there. If I graduated 100 pararescuemen in 1 year out of the schoolhouse, I just influenced 20% of the career field. 20% of the career field, multiple different squadrons went out and they were like, this is what they're teaching us at the schoolhouse. This is the culture that we experienced at the schoolhouse. We got together every month and we did a workout for one of our friends that died. And really what that was, is it was the instructors telling me about their friends. Because they were their friend. They were here in this schoolhouse. They sweat and bled together in training. And now those guys aren't here. And we got to tell their stories. Because that's part of our culture. Because we're warriors that walk this path. For as cringy as that is, you walk this path that you have these friends, you make these connections that can't be explained to anybody else. That's what our culture is. I think you can extrapolate that out to how it is that I feel about being an American citizen, or where I think culture needs to go. But I think that we all need a shift back to that. We all need to take this 250th birthday and this crazy time that we're in right now, because it's absolutely insane. It's the most insane time. And I always laugh about this thought experiment, but I think about my dad when he was 45 years old. I wonder if he looked around at the world and was like, what the hell is going on? What is happening? Because that's how I feel every day. It's crazy to kind of put yourself, or, my grandfather was 45. He was out of World War II, he's in the Navy, he's living in Northeast Ohio, he's got a huge family. Did he ever just look around and just be like, what is happening? What is going on? Right? Because that's definitely what it feels like now. But how do we lead through that? Because that's what we're talking, when we talk about changing a culture, we do it from the bare bones. We do it from having GWOT veterans teaching at those schoolhouses and going, no, man, here's how it is on the ground. Here's the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, the mundane, the terrifying, the traumatic. Here's what you're going to see. I can't tell you how you're going to respond, but I can tell you that I need you to be ready to respond. And I can help you be ready to respond. I can't tell you how you're going to respond. That's on you. But I can prepare you for that so that when you're ready to answer the call, you can. And if we apply that to culture, that's what we need to do now. I think that we do need a culture shift inside of the Air Force. I think that we do need a culture shift inside of the DoD. But it's to look internally and say, what's really important? What are our values? What do we, no kidding, what do we value? What are we trying to do? What is the culture that we want, because we make the culture? So what are we willing to live with? If we want a warrior culture, you got to live like a warrior. You got to be okay doing the hard things then. Like, if that's what you want to be and that's who you are, and that's who I like to think I am, both as a special operator in another lifetime, as an American citizen, just as a dad, as a human. If you want to live that warrior culture, if you want to live that ethos, that's cool, but you got to do hard stuff. And we just need a rebaselining to that. And we need to be answering all those questions. So yeah, I think a culture shift is needed. I think there's the pendulum swings every way. And again, 2015 to 2025 was a wild time. The pendulum swung a lot of different directions. And now we see a lot of it coming back, and in some cases swinging in the opposite direction again. We just need to calm that noise down, and we need to really get back to who we are. Man, we are freaking Americans from the best country on the history of the planet, the history of the universe. And the culture is ours to change it. That's a great thing about culture, and to a greater extent, legacy. You can start your own legacy right now. You want to change the culture? You want to be the person to change it? Change it. Be brave, be bold, stand up, speak truth, go change it. Get other people. If your ideas are good and it's a culture that other people want to adhere to, great. Now you got a team. And now we're talking. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go farther, you go with the team. So now you got a whole team of like-minded individuals, and now we're talking. Now we're talking about a whole bunch of people that set their own inside of a warrior culture. We say, no, these are our standards. We don't set the standard lower for anything. We understand we're going to have to do hard stuff, and there are going to be some good dudes that aren't going to meet the standard, and we're going to have to be like, hey, see ya, for whatever reason. But that's the standard, because what we're doing, never lose sight of what we're doing. We have a no-fail mission. Somebody is going to call a pararescue team. They're going to call an Air Force Special Operations team, and they're going to say, help, I can't, I'm going to die. Help. You going to go? Are you ready? Did you train enough? How many miles a week did you run? Did you care to wake up an hour earlier? All of those questions, they don't matter in the end. They don't matter when that flag goes up. Are you ready to go? It's a yes or no. It's a pass-fail event. Like, there's no grade. It's you pass or you fail. You did or you didn't. And we need to get people that are ready to make that. And I think that's the part of the culture I want to change. Because I want these GWOT vets. It's easy to be, and now as we all get some space from it, right? Like, we have some time away from Afghanistan, away from GWOT, away from these things. We have some time to go, okay, well, what does this young generation need? What war stories do they really, what do they need? Like, if I don't tell you what it sounds like, you know, and I'm not saying me specifically, I'm saying if the GWOT veterans don't tell you what incoming sounds like versus outcoming, how are these young folks going to know? How are they going to be prepared? I can't sit here and be like, oh, this culture is going down in flames, and then all I do is post about it on the internet. That doesn't seem like I'm doing anything that's helpful, right? We need to engage, and we need to get you ready to go. And a lot of that is our culture. But I would make my point on this before we hit this last question here. Yes, I think we need a culture change, but I think that culture change lies in us and in me personally. I can affect this. You can affect this. We can affect this together. We can just decide from today on that this is our legacy. If we wanted today to be day one in the new legacy of whatever Air Force Special Warfare evolves into, we can do so today. We have the requisite brain power betwixt us. We can do it. Question is, do you have the potential? Do you have the minerals to see that one through? Right? The question isn't, do we think that this is the quote from Boondock Saints is running around in my head. The question isn't, are we going to be able to do this thing? The question is, do you possess the Constitution to do everything it's going to take for us to be successful? The question isn't, is the mission righteous? We all know it is. Being a combat controller, TAC PSR, just being in the military, serving, all that is valid. All of that is a noble pursuit. Never take anything away from that. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent. You've done something that nobody else will, right? But if we want to live to a higher standard, if we want to accept that we have high immutable standards because we have a no-fail mission, and even inside of that service, we have something that is righteous. Being an Air Force Special Operator is righteous. Then we just have to decide that this is what we accept in our culture, and then we live it, and we make it so. And that's it. We're going to end on this one because it's one of my favorite. This is from, let me read this correct, Patriot Deb 24. As a parent of a combat controller, 5 years in, best ways to support him. This is a great question. It's one I wanted to end on. First and foremost, because we love parents. We love when you guys reach out to us. We're all the same age. I've got a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old. I'd like to think I've done my job as a parent with my young son, that he's not going to run out of options like his dad did and have to slum it in the Air Force. But I could be in your position right now. I could be talking about having a son that's getting ready to ship, and he's been in development, and he's going down to Lackland Air Force Base. He could do that in the next 6 months, man. Like, I get it. We love talking to parents because we're your peers on this one. We're figuring it out as we go too. Peaches, same boat. Trent, going to be real soon here. He's got kids that's going to be a real option for him, right? Getting in the military, doing this thing. So we understand it. So first and foremost, thanks for who you are. Your son couldn't have gotten there without you. So shout out to you. Always give a shout out to the parents. It's easy for parents too to kind of forget that. I do it as a parent myself. You see this awesome little thing that you've produced, and they're conquering the world and getting through selection, and you're like, oh, look how proud they got there completely on their own. And you deserve somebody that's telling you, hey, you did a good job as a parent too. So there you go. The best thing that you can do to support them is just doing what you're doing now. You don't have to understand. You're never going to be on the team. I'll tell you that. As a parent, like I love my parents, had a great relationship with them the entire time that I was on the teams. Sometimes they just need you to be their parent. You don't have to know exactly what they're doing. You're not going to know where they are all the time. You're not going to know what they're doing. They can't tell you who they're with. And a lot of times, to be honest with you, they're going to be living that life. I mean, put yourself in their 25, your son 5 years in. So let's assume, 27, 28 with the bros, TDY, 200 days a year, getting paid, doing fun stuff. Come on. This is a siren song. That's why you get in. They're living their life. They're at the prime of their life, doing the things with the best friends they're ever going to have. You just got to be there with them for that ride. Like, understand it comes with cost. I'd say one thing you could do as a parent is be intrusive. I know it's easy to let them go off and live their life, right? I'm the parent of 2 girls and 2 boys. My young daughter is going to be born here weeks away from now. It's going to be great. Can't wait. So, older daughter, older son, younger son, and then a little daughter here, right? So you're always trying to think how to support them the best. And when you see them doing these things, especially with your son, he's in it, he's living that life. It's always okay for you to be a parent. Just like, hey, how are you doing? No, seriously, how are you doing? How are things? How are you tired of being on the road? That's a big one. Like, dudes get homesick, just let them be homesick. It's okay. It's hilarious. You think about your hometown and you have these romantic ideas, especially when you've been away or you've been on teams and you've been chasing the pipeline dream, or you catch a couple deployments, and you think about, in glowing terms of mom and dad and being a high school senior or wherever it is. And you always put them in kind of that context. For a parent, it's okay to let them know that there's not much going on back at their old life, like, hey, that's great, but you're not missing a whole lot. A lot of your friends are doing probably some of the same stuff that they've been doing since you left. Not a whole lot you're missing there. Supporting them, but being intrusive, really digging down. How is it? You can always tell, like, you're a parent, talking to them after hard deployments or having hard missions, or, every once in a while you get one of those phone calls where it's, you'll be able to hear it. If you haven't gotten one, there's going to be one that you're going to get. And it's going to be awkward. And he's going to be like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm okay. And there might be a news story, which is a wild thing to conceptualize as a parent, right? It's a wild thing that you literally live your life in a universe where it's a total reasonable thing that your son could do something that winds up on the news 24 hours later, and it's a huge military operation somewhere else in the world. Like, what a wild thing to conceptualize as a parent, right? Like, how do you possibly support somebody when that is a thing that you have to deal with? I don't know. I can tell you as a guy, I don't know from either end of it, bro. I can't tell you what I would do. And I was the guy that was making those calls. I was like, hey, I'm okay, but if you see a thing, like, hey, if you happen to see that a helicopter crashed, it wasn't me, and we'll go from there. You're going to get those calls. And, it's just on you. You raise this person to be this resilient, unstoppable force. They had a 9% success rate going into this thing. You were there through the early warnings. You were there through the times they didn't think they were going to make it, through the times that they didn't think they were good enough. You had to, I'm sure, help them lick some of their wounds. You had to be their biggest cheerleader when they were doing good. You had to tell them that they were doing great and give them that feedback. This person. You just got to be there for that person. I think you're not going to, understanding who the team guys are, like, that's family now, So when you hear them talk about those team, taking interest in their teammates, that's probably the best piece of advice I could give you on that one is, those times that you come and you visit, or the times that they're around in the same area, you should meet the team guys, because you'll be surprised that you have a whole lot more family members than you initially realized. And I think that's probably the best part about the only time that I get romantic talking about Air Force special operations or the military in general, even special operations, generally speaking, is when I talk about those connections to those families, like truly knowing that if you go away for whatever reason, hyperbolically or not, like if you go away on a long TDY all the way up until, maybe you don't come home from a deployment, I always knew that there was a team that was going to take care of those people. Like those people, you know, best friends to this day that I know that would stop everything that they're doing. If I called any one of my friends, like, I need you to go over to my house. I can't tell you what you're going, but you know, you're going to need to take a gun. They wouldn't even, they'd be like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Like, what kind of question is that? But expand that family and embrace them, because when you're not there, mom and dad, like when you're not there to give that sort of support, like they're leaning on those teammates. Like that's your extended family now. Like that, those guys are going to live 6 months a year. You know, a little plywood is going to be all that stops them from hearing your conversations every single night as guys are doing their phone calls at the end of the night and sharing, you know, a 1/4 inch thick plywood wall in some tent somewhere, and there's no privacy, and you can hear the guy talking to his wife and his parents and all this other and their kids as everybody's going out and laying to go to sleep. Like these people are going to be intimately involved in their lives. The best way that you could support them is, you know those people, get to know their families, make that support system real. Like that'd be great. But you're doing more than anybody else, you know, and I think all of us old dogs are going to have to learn some new tricks too. And we talked about it with culture and the way that things are changing, the way that we take in information. I think as parents, as GWOT veterans, as older folks, you know, as you get a little bit more time on the earth, you do learn a little things. That's why wisdom and oral history has been important, and why we're, as a civilization, humans are great at honoring what came before them and then trying to make it better and going forward. And I think that's what we're talking about this whole episode, right? Like all these questions are just to help you be the best version of who you can be. And that if you're a parent trying to help your son through some crazy pipeline or some crazy job that he decided to take on, or if you're getting into it yourself, or if you have a family, like that's the point, right? The point is to get this community of folks together to be better than we were. So whether we're talking about the culture in the Air Force or changes to the pipeline or whatever, there is no end to better. There is no end to the pursuit of being better than who we are, to give the best possible thing of ourselves and of our organizations to whatever we're doing. And it's, you know, the most cringy that I could possibly be about it, but Air Force core values: integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. That seems like a pretty good framework to live inside of as my core values, and then develop a warrior ethos and culture of accountability under that's focused specifically on what we got to get after. And we're able to take things like changes in a pipeline, and we can just take it in stride and say, no, I understand, you know, what the end state is, what I'm trying to do, who I'm trying to become at the end of this process, and all of the stuff in the middle, whether it's cultural or political, or changes to our, you know, down and in our little soda straws of our lives, or, you know, all the way out to the world. We can take those in stride because we know where we're going at the end. We want to get to the end of what it is that we're doing. We want to be successful. And I think that's why we're here. I mean, that's why we're here, from Peaches and Trent. Like I'll speak for them on this one. I hesitate to do so. But that's why we're here. We want you to be better. We want to be better. We want the entire organization because we love it. So we'll do these FAQs. I don't even know how long I just went for. That's got to be some sort of record. If you stayed here to the end, there you go. We'll produce a lot of short form content out of this to get your specific question answered. I want to say thanks to everybody that engages. You guys are awesome. You're the only reason why we're here. 500 episodes plus, all the way up to here at Hardy Media. Just go to hardymedia.net if you want to talk to Matthew Hardy about the fantastic in-person stuff. But we could never believe that we're here, but we're only here because you are. We're only here because you guys have this knowledge, because we think that you're trying to get to that end state. We see something in everybody that follows and engages, for good, bad, or indifferent. We see that you're trying to do things for better. Even if you hop on to troll the page and you're like, this is dumb, Air Force never does anything. I got it. That's banter. You want us to be better. Man, I'm good with it. Right? Like, we're going towards an end state. So we're glad that you're on this journey with us. We appreciate it. Go follow us wherever. You get it. I've already hit you with all the ad reads and stuff. So from us here, another FAQ in the books. Thanks for coming along for this one. We're done.